Thanks for joining us here at Finovate Europe. I'm David Penn, Research Analyst with Finovate. And joining me today, I have two guests from Nationwide. I have with me Rachel Robinson, who's Head of Digital Strategy and Product Development, and Richard James, who's Head of Digital Technology and Engineering. Thank you both for joining us today.
Hey, pleasure to be here.
Now, you both are going to be part of a presentation a little later on this afternoon, I understand. Could you maybe give us a little preview of what you're going to be talking about?
Yeah, sure. So, our talk is really, it's a bit about the story of actually our working relationship in some ways. So Richard kind of works in IT and I work in the business, or that's how once upon a time we would have talked about it at Nationwide. Yeah. And when I first arrived at Nationwide 5-6 years ago, I often found myself sitting in a room where people like Richard sat at one end of the room talking about IT, and they'd talk about this mythical thing called the business, and I'd look around and I'd just returned to working in financial services, having spent quite a long time kind of out working with smaller companies, startups, scale-ups. And it took me a while to figure out, when they talk about the business, they mean me. And actually, sometimes we didn't even really sit in the same room. And things have dramatically changed at Nationwide over the last few years, particularly over the last 18 months or so. And we don't talk about the business or IT anymore. We talk about ourselves as Nationwide. We are very much one team. Yeah. And we found that that has been one of the most critical things, one of the powerful things in kind of actually unlocking change within our teams. We are much, much more focused on single goals. So we're a member-owned organisation. Nationwide is a mutual. We're the world's biggest building society. We've got 15 million members. We've always been very, very focused on customer experience and on our members, but as we've got much bigger as an organisation, we've faced all those challenges that will be really common and will resonate with many people here today, I think. Industrialisation, scale, and no matter what we did, it felt like nothing was ever fast enough or quick enough or cheap enough, even though we were still really focused on our members. But some of the changes we've made over the last 12 to 18 months by bringing people together, working in a different way, having really kind of customer-focused common goals, adopting a much more agile and lean kind of mindset and approach, embracing modern technology, that's really made the power of difference. And we're now seeing kind of a real difference in pace, but also difference in kind of the outcomes and the value that our teams deliver for our customers. And really that's what our talk today is all about.
Oh, very, very interesting. How long did this process take?
So it's a journey we really started on about 12, 18 months ago. Wow. So we'd been Nationwide, like lots of big organizations, we'd been playing around with doing a bit more agile, kind of doing some agile pilots, we'd been doing proof of concepts with different types of modern technology, but a big kind of moment happened for us in 2016 when we got a new chief executive. And Joe is a real kind of pioneering executive, and he helped, as a leader, helped us reconnect to our purpose as an organisation. And he almost gave us permission to challenge ourselves in terms of how we were thinking, how we were working. He broke down some of these silos actually just by challenging us to change language and not to talk about the business and IT anymore. And so some folks like Richard and I and many others who are not here today, actually seized that as an opportunity and just said, hey, well, can we give some people the permission to go and try working differently, being really focused on a singular, common, customer-focused goal, give them permission to use different tools, different technology. And that was about 18 months ago now. We started with a small team who were focused on reimagining what it might look like to get a mortgage, to buy a home. We're now 12, 18 months in, and so we've got actually customers using some of those new experiences, some of those new journeys that we've redesigned. They're performing much better than our old services were performing, and we're starting to see real benefits in terms of kind of pace, efficiency in what we're doing, and resilience as well with things like adoption of cloud.
Yeah. Excellent, excellent. It's interesting, a number of things you said were interesting. One was the idea that it seemed that at the same time that you were, in a sense, going back to your roots or being driven back to your roots by your CEO, but at the same time you're also embarking upon these new paradigms that involve technologies, that involve different divisions or different parts of the business having to come together. So it's almost as if they're two different things. You're going back and moving forward at the same time in a relatively short period of time, and successfully so. So could you talk a little bit about that?
Sure, so I think the opportunity we have is to really look at how technology now is more of an enabler than almost ever before. The type of things that are now achievable with the smaller technologies, the microservices and the use of public cloud, we find ourselves able to create and experiment and iterate, and actually in doing that, the ability to be able to do small things regularly then leaves you in a place where you can connect back to purpose, you can try, you can look to experiment your way forwards. I think that then helps with the proximity between the end member or customer through the business into the technology. And so you can look at innovative ideas, you can look at experimenting your way through, you can put things down, you can put it in front of customers, you can say, does this work for you? And so in that sense, actually, we've been able to almost bridge back to our core common purpose through some of the enabling technologies.
Right. Well, I have to admit, hearing from you now, it sounds like the present's been unwrapped and the kids are playing, but I have to wonder, getting to this point, how difficult was it? I mean, 12 months sounds like a relatively short period of time. How difficult was it to make this merge happen?
So the more interesting piece is probably that with 12 or 18 months worth of success behind us, how do you now tackle the enterprise? So it's great, you can take your pioneers, you can give them the opportunity, you can give them the space and the freedom, you can afford them the chance to experiment. But when you then try and take that to become the new normal across an enterprise who've become very established as sort of industrial machines, taking the pioneers and bridging towards the town planners, that's where the complex cultural change comes. It's fine, you can have the new technologies, but if the organization is uncomfortable, in the end you can only do so much. And I think the challenge ahead of us, and one of the reasons we want to talk, is we are facing now into how do you scale? So you can do agile, you can bring people together, you can tackle some of the things, but until you have scale, you've not really affected a full transformation.
Right. So you definitely have both the human and the technological components that have to be aligned in order to make it work.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, we've been making investment in technology at Nationwide for a number of years now, and last year we announced a significant increase in our investment in technology because we know that technology can be a brilliant enabler. It unlocks tons of exciting opportunities, just like Richard was saying, but we are even more convinced now than we were 12, 18 months ago before we started on our journey that actually technology is not the most important thing, and your investment in technology is not the most important thing. It's actually focusing on people and culture that is the really, really critical thing to a successful kind of digital transformation, a successful thing that allows organizations to really make a difference in terms of the service that they offer to their customers. And so, the hard yards are yet to come for us as an organization. We now want to scale this even further across our organization, and the things we're focusing on the most and the hardest are some of the cultural elements, some of the people elements, which is why we're investing heavily in people and talent at Nationwide. So we're looking to bring in up to 1,000 new people in new technology roles over the next 3 years. We're establishing a new specialist tech hub. We're looking at different locations for that, and we're also investing really heavily in our own talent. So lots of the people who came and became part of these pioneering teams who started to embrace more agile ways of working, new technologies like cloud, microservices, working with APIs, they've had the benefit of having a lot of coaching and development from external support that we brought in to work with us on that, and we're continuing to invest in those teams. So it's a really exciting time to be kind of part of Nationwide, and we see that in our teams. We've just now got to grow it and keep the momentum going.
Right. I'm curious about the idea of the cultural change. It's certainly something that we hear a lot more companies talking about, making the need to do. You talked about language as one of the tools to accomplish that. What are some of the other tools that can be deployed to help companies make those sort of transitions?
I think we touch on this a lot in the presentation. The ability to tell stories, to bring people on the journey with you, to actually celebrate the failures, the learning opportunities, and the openness and transparency that says, okay, we're going to try some things here. We won't risk our members, but we will experiment in a way that we typically would have a much reduced appetite for any form of risk. And I think the ability to say it's going to be okay to experiment and it's going to be okay to learn from those is key. One of the other ones I'd call out is the measurement. So the ability to articulate through both the measurement of business success and IT resilience or scalability, you can cut through some of the fear, uncertainty and doubt with good quality measures. And again, if you look at some of the modern technologies, there is suddenly a lot more diagnostic available to you, and you can have a much better informed conversation around the sort of the trajectory and the current pace. And I think that helps because it cuts through any negativity or uncertainty if you can back it up with hard evidence.
Right. So you're having the receipts, as the kids say.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is it.
Yeah, very interesting, very interesting. I don't know how much time we've got, but again, I want to touch on just a couple of things in terms of the relationship between, again, you talked about culture and technology and some of the other things. What are some of the other technologies, maybe looking a little bit more specifically, that can be used in the way that you talked about them?
Sure. So what we have gone over the last 12 months to try and really focus on is the enablement. And so for us, the adoption of public cloud, the move towards DevOps, not in terms of solely the pipelines and the technologies that underpin continuous integration, continuous delivery, but more fundamentally, again, the cultural change required to move towards a DevOps organization.
Right.
We have a raft of technology within there. We work with AWS, we work with Azure, we work with Apogee, we work with a whole suite of products that have helped us. But again, like for me, the use of the specific technologies is important, but I'm trying to get to a position where actually the specific technologies are less less in your face than the enablement that having such a suite in your digital platform gives you. And so what we've created is a digital hub model that consumes a digital platform. And the digital platform then works on the cloud, works on the DevOps constructs. The hubs then can concentrate on business value and the creation of journeys that are transformed because a lot of the stuff is just taken care of.
Right.
At which point then you don't have to worry. You can focus your efforts on the service and experience design, you can focus your efforts on creating compelling propositions because the new infrastructure, the new resilience, the new delivery mechanisms cover your fears.
Right, right. That's certainly a theme that we're hearing from a number of people at this conference, the idea of using technology to sort of in a weird way to restore what's behind the technology, to restore the humanity.
Exactly.
It's interesting. At a period where people are concerned about the power of technology, whether it's the automation, whether it's social aspects of technology, and trying to figure out how can we use it to get back to what we wanted the technology for in the first place, which is really interesting stuff. Let me just ask you this, maybe as by way of closing. Was there anything about the process that surprised you about the way things came about as you were going through it?
You have one, I probably have one.
It still continues to surprise me even now that even when you have small empowered teams making fantastic progress, there are still a lot of myths that you have to bust and myths that you have to kind of prove, disprove, and we talked a bit about using measurement to kind of help dispel some of the myths. But even 12, 18 months in, some of these myths still persist in our organisation, and it takes a long time for a culture to be created, particularly in a large financial services organisation. And therefore, one of the things I have to remind myself sometimes is that it also takes a long time for a culture to change.
Yes.
And I thought that short-term success, when we set out on this journey, delivering some of the best ever customer services that we have been able to provide for our members, delivering a significant increase in terms of business benefit, an improvement in terms of pace and change efficiency. I perhaps naively thought that we would turn everybody into believers relatively quickly, and actually we've still got a long way to go on that journey because it takes a long time for these kind of myths to build up and the culture to build up, and it takes a long time for it to change too.
Absolutely.
I think my equivalent would then be the corollary to that is that for those folk who were brave and pioneering and risked a lot, the culture that's been created is incredibly powerful. It's infectious, it's positive. We changed the working environment, we changed the physical environment, and when you bring people to the offices and you take them into the hub space rather than the existing space, you feel it. And I love it gives me positive energy, even if you're fighting the machinery and you're fighting the organisation.
That's part of the fun, right?
You can turn up and you genuinely feel that sense of yes, we can positivity, and it makes a difference. It reinforces that belief that the change is worth pursuing. The cultural transformation is the thing that will unlock organisational change because you feel it.
And make the investment in technology really powerful.
Yeah, very, very interesting. And certainly a lot of credit goes to your CEO for spurring that change, but certainly for you all who have to implement it. It's like the light bulb has to want to be changed, right? And the fact that you've been able to do that and are in the process of doing it, I think it's commendable to the top and all the way down, it seems. Well, I want to thank you both very much for talking with us. Really interesting to hear about some of the themes, again, that are, I think we're hearing from a lot of different companies, a lot of the challenges that we're hearing from a lot of companies in terms of making the human and the technology parts really go together and help companies build, grow, thrive, and as you said, scale as well. So I think people are going to very much enjoy hearing some of the things you guys have to say in your own experience later on for your presentation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Nice
you.
to meet you. Thanks.
And thank you very much for joining us as well.